We were founded in 1924, so we are 100 and wonderful this year. And our mission is to conserve the natural beauty and wildness of the Wissahickon Valley and stimulate public interest therein. And we do this by mobilizing the resources to conserve the park, be that volunteers, funding, or partners. Just last year, over 2,200 volunteers contributed over 19,000 hours of service stewarding the Wissahickon Valley Park. And it's an enormous contribution. And I just want to thank all of our volunteers for all of their hard work in supporting our conservation mission in the park. We also advocate on behalf of the watershed, and we welcome the park's millions of visitors to the park through accessible infrastructure and educational programming. And the Lead Away pedestrian bridge just up the hill, a $3.5 million investment in the accessibility of this really popular area of the park, is an example of that. And really, you make all of this work possible. All of our members and all of our volunteers make this work possible. So I would encourage you all to please come out, volunteer, become a member, and thank you all for your support if you're already a volunteer or a member. I want to welcome up our sponsor for the night, Doug Schaller. Thank you, Doug and David, for sponsoring this program. We wouldn't be able to have this wonderful talk without their support.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
We're all friends of the Wissahickon, so rain doesn't matter, right? Or flooding. So thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for organizing this and inviting Jody. And this is like a dream come true. I think around the time I moved to Philadelphia, I was trying to learn the trails and trying to learn where to go find nature and hikes. And friends said, well, you know about Fingerspan. I was like, no, what is that? And it defines Philadelphia for me. It's quirky, it's in nature, and it's like, how on earth did that ever happen? So I think this is a thrill to hear you tell the story. So thank you, Jody.
Thank you so much, Doug. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker, Jody Pinto. Jody lives and works in New York City, but she was born into a family of Philadelphia artists. After receiving a BFA from Philadelphia College of Art, she studied at the Pennsylvania Academy of Arts, where she was a critic in its graduate program, started the first visiting artist program to bring contemporary artists to speak at the school, and taught for 40 years. In 1983, Jody was among the recipients of the Thomas Hazlett Memorial Awards for excellence in the arts in Pennsylvania. In the years since Fingerspan's installation in 1987, Jody has made public works in Japan, Israel, and across the United States. Her work is represented in many collections, including PAFA, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, the Locks Gallery, Woodmere, the Guggenheim Museum, the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Museum of Modern Art, and the National Gallery of Art. Today, Jody is working on an upcoming museum show, and she recently completed a video archive project of the Smithsonian. Thank you, Jody. We're so excited to have you.
Your organization, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm the one who should be applauding. You caused Fingerspan to happen. And Doug and David have been champions. Okay, so can you hear me? Boo. Okay. All right, I think. What if I take it out? No, I won't. I won't. I can tell just by your face. Okay. I'd like to start with a little background. Tiny background. Penny Bach, who was director of the Association for Public Art, had this idea that artists could work with communities to see what their community needed. And would it be possible for artists and community to get together and create something that was specific for that community and that enabled that community in one way or another to do something that was important to them? It may sound strange, but that was never done before. That happened in Philadelphia. First time ever. Yes, artists had been invited to do projects in, oh, the mountains somewhere and the valley somewhere and the city. But it didn't have anything to do with community. It had to do with someone sponsoring a fabulously expensive, in many cases, piece of art, bonk. Nothing had ever been done like this, like Fingerspan. So it was a brilliant idea that she had. She invited artists to make proposals for different areas in Philadelphia. Very, very early proposals, because nothing had been finalized. And I was in a tiny Father, Son, and Holy Ghost building near the park, near the museum. And Penny came with two other curators, one from California, another from Colorado. And what they were doing was selecting 7 artists who might make proposals in different areas of Philadelphia. Nobody had yet thought of Fairmount Park. Anyway, most of the proposals were in Philadelphia itself. So there was a show at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art of 7 or 8 of these proposals. I had made a proposal for something that later on was nixed because of expense and also because of possible destruction to the area. Sounds like a bomb, but it wasn't. And so I'm going to go through, and I'm saying that this is Fingerspan Bridge, a community story, because it was a community story from the very beginning, right through, until today. So my first proposal, and I was brought to this site by you. At the time, it was the president, I think, of the organization. I'm pretty sure. Someone's nodding. Yeah. And I don't know if you're familiar with this particular site, but it was a place that was favored by fishermen. What had happened over years and years and years, some of the rock had given away. It was dangerous. And often the fishermen lost their lines, of course, I mean, you can imagine. So my proposal was to give fishermen a triple split tongue pier. You may say, a what? A split tongue pier. When you think about it, in nature, there's split tongues everywhere. A snake hears with it. There are other animals that use their tongues also to locate. Birds also. And the tongue is a vehicle for communication. So we looked at this site, and the feeling was, when we brought in engineers, that it would be very, very expensive, and that eventually it might even destroy part of the Wissahickon at this site. So that was a no. These were some of the drawings that I had done. When I draw for a project, first comes the idea. And what's so important is that I sort of dream a bit. And you might look at this and you might say, what? But it has energy, it has excitement for me, and hopefully, of course, for whoever I'm presenting it to. But they're not always, when you look at a computer drawing, I hope there are no people in the room that love computer drawings. But for me, the information is here, but it's here with energy, and it's looking right at you. The idea was to give various sections a place where they could fish, and also an area where the fishermen could sit and get out of the sun. And the woolly part of this is, I would encourage growth around the area where you would be able to sit. One of the things about public art is you don't take anything for granted. You understand that not everything's going to work. And sometimes if you believe enough in the project that you're aiming for, that you're thinking of, if you believe enough in it, it's going to happen. It may not be what you designed first time, but for me, I was in love with the Wissahickon. I was going to do something there. I didn't know what, but I was going to do something. And so I was willing to just entertain several sites that the community chose. So here are those wonderful 30s steps that you stagger up to this point. And, it's beauty. It's an extraordinary moment that you see the other side of the river and the river itself, and it's so close. But there was a problem. These were some of the designs, getting to it, the possibility that the overhang earth could shift and the cost would be extreme. Okay. I didn't give up. It's the Italian Irish in me. And voila, here you see one of the most beautiful staircases you will ever see in your life. It came from a ship. If you were traveling with children or a dog, you lost them. And the suggestion was, what can you do with this? And I heard that people had tried to design bridges for this site. And I said, what happened to the bridges? And they said, well, one caught fire. Another just crumbled. And then what's marvelous, and I think this is part of being an artist that works with communities. It was the community that gave me all this information, okay? And look at this. Not only did you give me information, people drew their ideas of what I might do or what could be done. And I said to Penny Bach, do they want me to do this bridge? It's wood. We might have some of the same problems. And Penny said, oh no, it's just that they know something's coming and they're so enthusiastic and they wanted to show you what could be done. And I thought, how fantastic. That's wonderful. So one of the things that Association for Public Art did with most artists was to set them up with an engineer, a landscape architect, whatever. Well, Penny set me up with an extraordinary engineer who had worked with Louis Kahn in India. I was much younger then, and he would tell me these stories that were unbelievable. And then we did this, and you'd love if you could see, and I'd be rapt. And Penny said to me one day, how's it going? And I said, well, Penny, actually, I could listen to this man forever. He'd tell, I'm in India, we go to India, we go here, we go there. So Penny said, well, maybe we should ask him, because he doesn't have much time, maybe we could ask him if he knows somebody that does have more time. And these were some of the very first drawings. And if you notice, there's a support in them. I'm dyslexic, so over here, I can't left and right. And then there's another support. And I was thinking, of course, of that extraordinary moment and very daring moment that Michelangelo used physical touch of God and man to transfer soul. It was really an amazing thing to do, to suggest that the physical body could be touched by another physical body and transfer of soul. I also thought of the finger image, because yes, from here to there, and I touch. But it is the beginning of all creation for artists. You use your hands, you use your fingers to paint, to draw, to whatever. But there was a support in the center. So it was suggested that I work with a young man named Sam Harris, who was with a well-known architecture firm here, Kieran Timberlake and Harris. And from the first meeting with Sam, he understood. He understood what I was after, why I wanted to have as little support, visible support, as possible. So this is what I I showed Sam, this is what I'm interested in. I want this finger to just go slowly from one point to another and touch it. No support. It doesn't need support. And so Sam said, I understand. We'll try it this way. We'll make the lower portion of the structure. We'll give it some body. And here I am at the foundry with Joe, who is also wonderful. And Fingerspan is beginning to be born behind us. And this photograph I love because it's like it's like those photographs of the Statue of Liberty, and the men are all in their top hats and suits looking just precious. And there's this toe that's larger than all of them. And so, yes. And so Fingerspan is in progress. Everyone around it looks like miniature models. And then there's a part of this that I don't know if you've heard about this or not, but we're all sitting in a room and there are several engineers and other distinguished people. And we're trying to figure out, okay, this is going to be possibly 18 tons of material. How do we get it to this site? And I said, Sam, we can't, people were suggesting guy wires from one side of the river to the other and bags of cement going through. I said, Sam, they'll destroy the whole site. The whole site's going to be destroyed. We can't do it that way. And then I thought of a film by a Paisan. It's a Fellini film, early. And I'll do a little act here. So the screen opens and there are two fabulously looking women in bikini bathing suits on top of a roof in Rome, wearing sunglasses. And all of a sudden, one of the women takes her sunglasses off, and she says, guarda, guarda, è Cristo, è Cristo. And her friend takes her sunglasses off and they're looking, and you're the audience. You don't see anything. You just see these two women. And then the camera goes up to the two men in the helicopter and they're taking their sunglasses off, but not to looking at Christ. They're taking their sunglasses and looking at these two women. And then, you know, if you can think, here's the screen. And then all of a sudden, you see this guy wire attached to the helicopter, and on the guy wire is a statue of Christ going to some church somewhere in Rome. And I thought of this while I was talking to Sam, and I said, Sam, I was born a half a block from Madison Avenue. If we do this, you're going to have every television station, every radio station, every whatever station at this takeoff. And he said, what do you mean, Jody? And I said, fly it in. Why can't we have a staging ground where flatbeds take the digits and wait, and then we have a helicopter come in, and the helicopter picks up each of the digits and takes it to the site. And I'm all excited. And Sam is very calm. And I said, Sam was one of those extraordinary pilots who got tons of awards. I didn't know that then, for being a pilot in Vietnam who would thread stretchers through the trees, through the foliage, and lift wounded soldiers out of the war. And Sam said to me, well, Jody, I'll check with my associates and see what we can do. Voila. Here we're at the staging ground. There are some of the flatbeds with the digits on them, and the helicopter comes in. And everybody is, and they're shoving microphones in my face. How does it feel? How does it feel? It's one, and I'm crying. And the helicopter comes in, it lowers on the area, the staging ground. And Sam runs over to the guy, and I'm following Sam. And the door, the bay door, whatever they call it, swings open. And there's this pilot, naked to the waist, great tan, ponytail, blonde hair. And he's looking down at us, and he says to Sam, where do I put it? And Sam says, I'll show you. And he points to the digits on the flatbeds, and the guy kind of looks like, this is crazy. So one by one, he first took the ladder out, and we all said, bye. And then one by one up the Wissahickon. And you know those films that were made right after the Vietnam War, where you'd see these planes coming in over the country and the trees just parting. I was standing with Penny on the other side, and that helicopter coming up the Wissahickon with the digits, one by one, the trees, if you can imagine this, the big trees on the Wissahickon right at that area just went like that. And the water, and you can see how high that helicopter is, the water was churning like crazy. And one by one, the digits were brought to the site to a group of men who soldered the different digits in place, except for one. Do you notice anything strange about this? We were screaming, no, around, turn it around. You almost had the fingernail in the middle of the bridge. No. So the pilot, poor guy, went out and brought the right part of the digit. And here you have Fingerspan. And it was my first permanent, so-called permanent project. And it was, I can't explain, but when I walked through, I had chosen it to be something that you could see 360 degrees, based in part on the great covered bridges of Pennsylvania. This bridge photographed itself with the sun on your body. You became part of the bridge, which was meant from the beginning, that you brought the sinew, the muscle, the blood to the bridge. You made it live. And what you see here is what the sun does in terms of shadow to anyone who would walk through it. Forgive. The other part of this, very, very important part from the beginning, when this was the site that was established for the bridge, I wanted it to be a color that would blend with the bridge. And at first, I know some people who are worried that, oh, you're going to put this shiny steel thing in the middle of this beautiful, beautiful environment. That was never my intention. One of the things that I do as an artist is to make anything that I make settle in its environment. It's not like that. It blends in with its environment. And as you can see from across the river, the other aspect of this is I try to use materials that are alive, that are living. This is a living bridge in the sense that you walk through it, you bring it to life. But the materials themselves, this is Corten steel. When it rains, it changes the color of the bridge. And here I am with Joe and Ray and Sam in the blue shirt. Just after it was completed. And that's Penny Bach and myself. And then the first people across the bridge. And look who's in front. Maybe I should leave that on, but all I can say is thank you for my first permanent project. Thank you for just giving it life, which you have for many years. I can't thank you enough. This is an extraordinary organization. Really, just, I'm lucky. So.
Good.
This was the first model of Fingerspan. To give a sense of what it might look like.
Thank you so much, Jody. We want to open it up to Q&A to the room. So Jody, you want to come back up? And just a reminder to repeat the question for our friends on Zoom.
What was the staging ground? How far was that from the valley? And then did you construct this model?
I've forgotten already the first part of your question. Forgive me.
Yeah, that's okay. It's I was wondering what the staging ground was. Where was the foundry? How far did the helicopter have to travel to get to the valley?
Interesting. The foundry was in Pottstown, and it was wonderful.
Oh, speaking of.
Oh, sorry. To answer your question, where was the foundry? In Pottstown, and I think Sam was probably advised that that would be a good foundry to work with. And because, you know, not every foundry is going to jump at something like this and brag about it. And it was wonderful working with them. And then the second part of your question was,
How far did the helicopter have to travel from where the flatbeds were to the valley? From Pottstown?
no, I don't know who, that was Sam. I don't know how he got that helicopter. But and I don't know where the helicopter came from. I think he did tell me once, but I don't remember. And it was a very short lift from the staging ground to Fingerspan, to the site. My friends. Sorry, yes, sorry. Did you? Yes, yes, exactly. Any other, yes, yeah.
As you're probably aware, there's currently a dead tree on the top of the bridge, so wondering if you thought on that.
The information was that a tree has fallen on Fingerspan. And this is something else that I would like to share with you. A tree fell on Fingerspan before. And one of the things that is extraordinary about Association for Public Art is they live with their projects. It's not, okay, it's done, survive as you can. They care for any projects that they're involved with. As soon as they find out that there's a problem or something needs to be taken care of, they're there. Just as you are as well, because it was reported at first by someone in your organization. And that's a gift to any artist here that does work in the valley. Yeah, yes.
What neighborhoods were you working with?
What neighborhoods were you working with when you were designing the project?
Neighbors.
Like, were you working with different community groups or anything?
Uh,
Is that right?
Actually, the community for me was a number of people from you all who were advising and who were saying this is something that has to change. It can't stay here this way. The ladder, almost vertical ladder, and it was dangerous. So for me, in this case, it was a number of you who asked if the Association for Public Art could send an artist or have an artist come and look at the situation. So I looked at 3, and the final one was the one. Yes.
Was the platform or the bridge constructed in advance and also brought over?
It's really hard to hear. Really hard to hear.
I'm sorry,
The bridge itself. the
Yeah.
platform,
the platform.
Yes, that constructed in advance and brought over with the helicopter.
Yes, yeah. Each part of the bridge as it is now was brought one at a time by helicopter to the site where there were workmen ready to fix it in place.
So the
So-
walkway itself was
Oh,
broken.
sorry, yes, the walkway itself, the whole thing was
Mhm.
brought in. One of the, it's an 80,000 pound bridge, and it's extraordinary that anything flying, a helicopter could tolerate that kind of weight, but it did. And he brought it through the trees. I mean, just not a branch was broken, nothing. It was incredible.
How long
Yeah.
did it take that?
Remember I mentioned earlier them people wanting to set up, guy wires to bring in, which would have taken probably a couple of weeks, at least maybe a couple of months. It took about 3 hours for the entire thing to,
Wow.
yes,
Did they have to build or set the islands first? Like-
yes, yes, and that was,
Like,
yeah.
were the stone steps leading up to the bridge constructed at the same time?
Oh. Those stone steps were a WPA project, and that is, yes, when you climb those stone steps, you take your life in your hands. But I imagine that they are, because they were done by they were one of the WPA projects, I guess they're dear to someone's heart. I don't know who, but they're there. Yes.
Come back to the Fingerspan Bridge just to walk over it,
Uh-huh.
look at it, spend some time with it.
Well, I've been back, I live in New York now, but I've been back, I would say maybe 4 or 5 times, maybe a little more. But the last trip, I was with someone from the Association of Public Art, and we got lost. But- and we even walked through a huge pipe. That was a drop too. Yeah. So, but every time I do see the bridge, it's wonderful, and every time there are so many stories about people getting proposals happening in the bridge. I've heard of a marriage in the bridge, and then there was a woman teacher who was in the Friends School in Germantown, and she wrote to Penny, who was director at the time, and said, I have a class. They were little, so probably 8-year-olds, maybe 7-year-olds. She said, I have a class and I love to take them to different interesting places that normally they would never see. And I saw, this is the teacher speaking, and I saw this wonderful bridge. And so I would love to take my class. Would that be possible? And Penny, of course, said, yes, yes, yes. And they came out to the bridge and she recorded it. And you can hear all these little voices, and then stamping on the the surface of the bridge. And then, and so I wrote to them because they each wrote letters saying that they wanted to see this. And so I wrote back to the teacher and I talked about why I did what I did and why I'm an artist, and that my parents were both artists, and what it meant to me, to the bridge. And then there was another flood of letters. And then a few years later, a number of years later, there was another project that I did on a pier here in the Delaware. And it was about immigration. Both my parents immigrated, one from Ireland, one from Italy. And the same teacher got her class together on the celebration of immigrants. And each of the children put on clothes and costumes that their parents would have worn. And they went down this pier and climbed up this spiral, which was in honor of what my parents went through. And she's once again invited me to come. But isn't that fabulous? I mean, that teachers do that kind of thing. Yeah. No more questions.
I can do one more about that.
I think that was very
Hi.
interesting. That was very interesting to hear about your other project. Can you share any other projects that you have done that might be public that we can see?
Yes, there's a bridge that I just completed during the pandemic, which was not the way I like to complete a project, but this project, the state of there was a bridge being built. There was a highway being built in Arizona. And it would connect to another huge highway. I mean, Arizona has highways. But this highway went through a reservation, and there was a Latino village settlement, primarily blue-collar workers. And they sliced through the community, which was called Rio del Rey. That's River of the King, which they're in the middle of the desert. So anyway, I loved that name, in the middle of the desert. And what that did was the children couldn't get to their schools because the community was divided with a highway. And at first there was the suggestion that by engineers that they do a tunnel under the highway. So I said, I have some questions. How many people in this room, this is to the engineers, how many people in this room have families? Okay. And how many have daughters? You want to build a tunnel for your kids to go to school? Dead silence. And what happened was there is now a very large bridge that's also fun to walk through, that spans the highway. And with this bridge, it's all about light. I wanted kids to be fascinated that light could create movement of color, because in the ceiling, there's polycarbonate pieces of colored yellow, purples, blues, reds in the ceiling. So when the sun is rising and setting, child goes to school in the morning, and there's this brilliant color all inside the bridge, all over the bridge, on them. Come back for lunch. The blue that was there is now over there. And it's all different color on the students. And that's another bridge in another state. And the name of the bridge is Rio del Rey.
No, I think,
Okay.
any other questions? Oh,
Whoop.
let's do one more.
Okay.
How did you choose core 10 steel? Did you work with that before? Or what was that like? Have you used it again?
Growing up in New York, this will sound crazy, but I was born on 57th Street between 5th and 6th. But at that time, there were galleries and artists and people going back and forth in Arrayos to Carnegie Hall, and jazz figures on the street. And I saw buildings being built, and you would go by one day in past some of the buildings, and the steel would look different. And, I'd say to my father, it wasn't like this when we went by before. And he said, no, some materials change because of the environment. And I thought, I didn't. They can change color. When something gets rusty, he's talking to a child. And I thought about it. And then as I grew older, grew up, I saw at the seashore, I saw a structure the day they put it together. And then within a week, it started to change color. And I asked someone, why? What's happening? It's getting rusty. It's gonna, and they, no, that's Corten. And from then on, any time I saw anything that was influenced by its site, that's what I wanted to use. It's like, again, it's a communication, not only with community, but with the site that you're working in. And if the site can actually change your materials, the look of them, that's incredible. That's what I want to use. So, and at a certain point, that was popular with, there was a famous building that was built. Can't think of, IMP, that slanted. And it was, yes, and also the roof, it was slanted. And part of it was Corten steel. There's a race. take all bets. Okay. Oh, COR-TEN, Corten. I mean, that's generally the right. Other artists have made work totally out of Corten steel. I don't know if you know the name Richard Serra. No. And others have also used Corten steel.
Thanks.
Okay.
The model.
I contributed to it. I had a studio assistant at the time who, this is a question about who made the model of the Fingerspan Bridge, the first model. There's another one that I have, and the same young man did that too, but it's out of wood, and the netting over it was from his speaker. Old speaker. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jody, for the treasure that is Fingerspan and for this wonderful talk. Bye, everyone on Zoom.